as somebody else that's not this Mark fella, how does that make you feel? That like you can order a pizza and the pizza guy comes to your door and your door's open, but there's like that glass door right there, like some houses have. You got the actual wood door, and then you got like a glass door right there. And the wood door's open, but the glass door is right there. And the pizza man rolls up, and your kind of already irritated German Shepherd goes to the door and starts barking and showing his teeth at the pizza man. And the pizza man calls the fucking conservation for animals and says, "Hey, this man has a rabid German Shepherd. I feared for my fucking life." And then these motherfuckers roll in and kill your dog. How would you feel? Your dog's not rabid, but on some bullshit with some bullshit paperwork and a bullshit opinion and some bullshit testimony and a bullshit story with a bullshit investigation, your dog dies that day. How does that make you feel? It doesn't make me feel very good. It's not illegal to own squirrels. At least I don't think it's illegal to own a squirrel. I've seen plenty of people own squirrels, ferrets, mongooses, snakes, alligators, crocodiles, pythons, boa constrictors. This is the least dangerous animal out of everything I just listed that people have owned. I don't think anyone's drawing the line at a squirrel. If my neighbor has a squirrel, good for my neighbor. You got a squirrel, dude, cool. So, why kill it?
Outrage is growing tonight after New York State authorities euthanized a local squirrel.
Oh, it's New York? Oh, that makes all the sense in the world now. Then again, it kind of makes sense because that's Angry Cops would definitely cover this, but it is way bigger news than just it happening where Angry Cops is from, because it isn't Angry Cops from New York. No. Right? No. Is he? I think.
I'm sure you've all heard of Peanut the Squirrel already. The
Not
squirrel
really.
that changed an election. Harambe Part 2. Squirrel and Raccoon Boogaloo. And for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, this is Peanut the Squirrel and his friend the Raccoon. Peanut had a couple million followers on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebooks combined. People like...
Which is not an uncommon thing. I've seen dogs have their own Facebook pages, cats have their own TikTok pages, and they get millions of views. It's not an uncommon thing. But, you know, this kind of reminds me of a video that I saw a couple of months back that it wasn't on stream, and I don't even think I shared it with you guys, but it was a video of this man freaking the fuck out because police killed one of his snakes that belonged to one of his customers or his boss, and this snake had $150,000 worth of babies inside of it. Because like this was like a snake building. Like this place had a whole bunch of snakes, and they did shit with snakes, and they fucking either sold them or bred them, or like everything was legal, but I don't even know why the cops were there, but they did snake shit, right? And that was their whole business. And then the cops come in and kill one of them. And the cops like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to," and this, and they're like, "Bro, how do you not?" Bro, he was so fucking, like, if you find the video, find the video. Just type in, "man goes apeshit because cops kill his snake." And it is fucking, bro, he was so I believe that officer had to have gotten fired. There's no way, unless and the guy was like, "Oh, the police department is gonna reimburse you for the money." He's like, "The money doesn't fucking matter, bro. Those are $100,000 worth of babies, and those babies can grow to be bigger snakes, and those snakes can have babies, and those snakes can have babies. You can't reimburse me. That's millions of dollars in the future that you just cost me, you piece of shit." Like, yeah.
Liked him, he was adorable. An account bringing positivity to social media. How kind. But unfortunately, Peanut here was put down after a raid by New York State's DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, who apparently weren't conservating the lives of squirrels on the day they raided Mark's home and picked up Peanut and his little raccoon friend. Not a lot of conservation when the first step is euthanization, DEC. So that's what's been going on in a quick 30-second blurb. And while everybody's talking about how horribly it affected the owner of Peanut, Mark, and how this was such a government overreach, nobody's explaining why it's a government overreach, or how the search warrant could have something as benign as Squirrel and the Raccoon on it.
A Karen. A Karen. I believe. That's my only theory. With the proper shrieking voice and the proper attitude, a Karen, if properly motivated, can move heaven and earth. She really can. And she can get smart men to do ridiculous, stupid-ass shit.
But before I give you the entire backstory, the warrant, and the aftermath, first, a word from this video sponsor.
Because everyone's afraid of angering a Karen. Oh, because if we make this Karen angry, oh, she might go to Twitter and write a bad review. She might go to Twitter and speak ill of us.
Every story starts at the beginning, and let's figure out who Peanut and Mark Longo actually are before we get into the nitty-gritty of the search warrant. While living around New York City, Mark was working, looked down one day, saw a little baby squirrel, ain't got no mama, that's Peanut, brings Peanut in, nurses him to health, and then says, all right, little squirrel, out you go. For those of you that are unaware of the habits of squirrels, they're to one another. And a day or two later, Peanut came hipping and hopping on back, as squirrels often do, to Mark, a studly handsome man with a chin as strong as steel and biceps that are just glistening. All right, I'm sorry, Mark, I'm sorry. But Peanut was injured again, missing a chunk of his tail.
I have an injured squirrel.
Because, like I said, squirrels to one another. So Mark, being the big-hearted guy that he is, took Peanut in for good, domesticated him, and then started a couple online social media accounts to show his kooky friend Peanut the Squirrel and the fun times they would have in his apartment. Isn't that charming? Well, a couple million people thought so because, boom, after 7 years, that's right, Mark has had Peanut for 7 years. And his social media blew up. Almost 1 million followers on Instagram. I think over 1 million on TikTok. Facebook's up there too. Well, it's just one normal guy and his kooky squirrel buddy jumping around and eating waffles and Pop-Tarts and dressing up in funny costumes for Halloween. Adorable stuff that makes you go, aw, the world isn't a complete and toxic piece of shit. And after growing quite a good following, Mark and Peanut had a little bit of scratch, a little bit of money, and you know what they wanted to do with it? No, not blow it all on blow and hookers. They wanted to create an animal rescue in Middle New York. Oh, isn't that nice? An animal rescue. Where today there is over 300 different animals that Mark is taking care of with his big heart and his even bigger muscles. I'm talking horses, goats, alpacas, chickens. If it's hurt and it's wounded and walking around funny, Mark is picking it up from the side of the road and rehabilitating that some. In fact, Mark and Peanut became so
Rehabilitating horses? I've never done it before because I've never been in that world or that business, but I have to imagine that is a difficult undertaking. On some weird shit, watch the alpacas be more difficult than the horse. Like, just you and maybe like your girl and maybe you're like a homeboy, or like, does he have an operation with people and employees and shit?
So popular that news agencies were knocking on the door and doing interviews with Mark and Peanut. Even international news organizations were stopping in and doing a feel-good story with Peanut. The squirrel not only has 2 million plus followers, it's on national and international news as an adorable squirrel that is warming the hearts of millions. But unfortunately, no news story for the pair would be quite as large as the day that Peanut died.
Outrage is growing tonight after New York State authorities euthanized a local squirrel.
Peanut.
And the raccoon as well.
And the raccoon as well. I am so sorry.
Because early on the morning of October 30th, Mark's home in mid-state New York got raided by the DEC. They handed him a warrant. They separated him and his wife from one another, 2 different rooms, don't be talking. And they started searching that house for a squirrel named Peanut and Fred, the raccoon. A warrant for Peanut the squirrel and Fred the raccoon. Let's break down that warrant, shall we? Now, I only have the first and last page of it, and warrants are a little, I don't want to say tricky, They're interesting things. We'll go over that in a little bit.
They're unique.
First, let's read the warrant from the state of New York, County Court, County of Chemung. You can chemung my balls. The first page isn't anything too mind-boggling. It says, hey, this is who's requesting the warrant. This is who they work for. This is who they need to help them out. And also, here's the location that we would like to go in search of some of these things that we need. What is it that we need in this search warrant? The last page tells us. Reasonable cause to believe having been established that property of the kind and character described by CPL 690-10, property that is unlawfully possessed, and CPL 690-10, again, property that constitutes evidence or tends to demonstrate that an offense was committed in New York, can be found at
Oh my god. They think that he stole the squirrel and the fucking raccoon. They're accusing him of stealing the raccoon, stealing the squirrel from their homes in the forest, and bringing the animals back to his house, which I guess is unlawful, right? I suppose. But he's rehabilitating these animals. How do you rehabilitate an animal without removing it from its environment? And with this squirrel kept getting his ass whooped, bro. He did the squirrel a favor by bringing him in. At the end of the day, I guess the biggest question is it really illegal to own a squirrel or a raccoon? I've seen plenty of people own these animals, man. Really. And maybe I guess it just depends on the state. It depends on the laws, but that's kind of fucking dumb. I'm sure that these animals got checked. I'm pretty sure they took these animals to some kind of veterinarian place, especially the raccoon. Those things are prone to rabies. I don't know, man. When you domesticate an animal, you can't just release this fucking animal, because you know what's going to happen? I mean, y'all work for the conservation of animals, right? What do you think happens when you domesticate an animal and then you just put it back out into the fucking wild? They won't survive. And y'all said y'all are for the conservation of animals? It just seems like y'all don't really know anything about animals. Really, to be honest.
Constitutes evidence or tends to demonstrate that an offense was committed in New York can be found at Redacted, the home of Mark, Chemung County, New York, including but not limited to unlawful possession of...
Now maybe did he live in a house or an apartment building? Because maybe if he lived in an apartment building or a complex, the owner of the complex or the building could have filed a complaint. That would be a reasonable cause to have these dudes show up, but not to y'all. But y'all are for the conservation of animals. Why euthanize it when you can just put it back out into the wild? Granted, it might not survive, but at least it has a chance to. It has that choice. It has that free will to decide if it's going to survive or not at the hands of you.
Of gray squirrel, black in color. Why I gotta be a black squirrel, huh? Why I gotta be black? Why you be like that, huh?
Oh yeah, that is true. Horses don't fit. No, I mean, he could have lived somewhere with the squirrel and just gone to a separate location for the horses. Let's just assume that he had a farm and he had a ranch and he lived there and all that stuff. Because it didn't really describe where he lived, and every place, every setting that I saw him in almost looked like a condo or something, so...
A raccoon and any other unlawfully possessed wildlife. And below that, you are hereby authorized to enter the...
But he had horses and what about all these other animals? Why are y'all fixated on the squirrel and the raccoon? So, what about the other animals that he has? He started a rescue. So, the other animals are good to have, right? But because these two in particular are in the same roof that he sleeps under, I'm guessing that's a problem. The other animal's not a problem? I don't understand that.
The above premises and seize all items listed in application. To seize all other illegally possessed wildlife or parts or articles containing parts thereof. To enter and search the business between the hours of 6 and 9 p.m. and to remain until the work is completed. Dated 10/29/2024, and the following day is the day that Peanut was collected as evidence. Now, you've read that right. Squirrels and raccoons are illegal to possess as pets in New York. Strange, I know. Now, laws like this are usually put in place because, well, raccoons carry rabies, sometimes so do squirrels, and other infectious diseases that could negatively affect the populace in an area. Oh, interesting. Now, some, like myself, might think that...
But I mean... That's all well and good, but you're just as prone to getting fucked up by a squirrel or a rabid raccoon on your own than you are to being exposed to this man's squirrel and raccoon. You see what I'm saying? I could go in my backyard right now and there might be a fucking raccoon back there, ready to fuck me up. I don't know. You don't know. When it comes to people that own these kinds of animals, wild animals that you normally don't see domesticated, right? Whenever I see someone that owns one of these animals, I automatically 100% assume that this person knows what they're doing. They've gone to the vet, they've done the shots, they've done the paperwork, they've done everything they need to do to make sure, especially for their own safety, not just everybody else, but they're going to be living with this animal, correct? Right? So I would assume that these people already know what the fuck they're doing when they get one of these animals, right? Naturally, unless it's like an impulse buy, people don't normally get animals that they're not comfortable with, that they're not prepared to have, right? I mean, there's a guy on YouTube that owns a fucking puma. A puma. It might be legal for him to have, and it should be legal for him to have. Why would it be illegal? Because the way I've seen him handle this puma is very good, very professional. The puma's domesticated, wouldn't harm anything. It's just a beautiful animal, right? I love seeing those videos of like pumas and shit. I don't know, man. There's a random rabid dog out there somewhere that is more dangerous than this squirrel and this raccoon could have ever been, especially under his care and in his possession, right? And then just leave it up to a freak accident, man. If his squirrel or his raccoon bites somebody, then you can step in as the higher authoritative figure and do some disciplinary action, right? Naturally, as you would with a dog or a cat or some shit like that, right? But the jumping down into and just you just start shooting immediately, man, asking no questions, no nothing. This isn't an action movie. I'll ask questions later. Man.
A rehabilitation center for animals might be some sort of, I don't know, might be excluded from some sort of list like this because, you know, they're rehabilitating animals. But hey, we'll hold off on that for now. But I'm sure you're saying, you know, this search warrant really didn't say anything. It said who was requesting it, where they wanted to go, and what were the things that they wanted to find. And you're right. You see, New York State search warrants come in two different pieces. There's the search warrant, which is very bland and basic, which you just read, and the application for a search warrant, also known as a search warrant affidavit.
And you have to give, I'm assuming you have to give way more in detail information on that one because that one is the one that the judge is essentially going to read and decide in all of his wisdom and knowledge if he's going to sign it or not and approve it. I'm assuming.
There are several organizations and people, including Mark, that have put forward a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act request, in order to get the affidavit, because the affidavit, also known as the search warrant application, will have far much more information in it. It's going to have who gather the information on this offense of owning a squirrel and rehabilitating a raccoon, as well as the information that the investigation collected to prove, or at least give reasonable suspicion, probable cause, that a crime had occurred. And then that crime would elicit a search warrant to find the property that should be inside that home. So the affidavit is going to have who investigated, the information that they received, what they then uncovered regarding the illegal activity, and how they recovered that information. So if somebody's feeding them info confidentially, they're gonna say a confidential informant told us that this, and this happened. If they sat there and used their binoculars to spy on the squirrel in his home,
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
they're gonna say,
Isn't y'all are the animal conservation? Isn't there poachers y'all should be chasing somewhere in the United States? Those people still exist, right? They have to. I don't. Do those people still exist? Do they still? Is poaching still a thing? Don't you have those people to go chase? Don't you have like animal like real, actual, I don't know, man, animal abusers. Like y'all should be chasing people like Michael Vick, right? I just reference him because that was a long time ago. He's a different dude today, right? Probably he made up for all that shit, really. But isn't that the kind of person you should be chasing?
That they did surveillance. What I would like to see in the affidavit is, did they look at the social media? Because if they did, holy guys, 7 years worth of videos, I think the squirrel's okay. If they
Yeah, but that would imply that the powers that be had any kind of like intuition with this shit, or foresight, or the ability to read a situation in anything other than black and white. That would assume that they would know how to do that. And it's pretty obvious here that they do not.
They did look at the social media and then decided to bum rush the door and not be a little more tactful, not tactical, tactful, maybe things would have ended up a little different. Once again, it's a squirrel that's been tamed and a raccoon that's just there until he feels better. This isn't a drug den filled with cocaine, high, crazy murdering shooters from Venezuela, MS-519. It's a squirrel. And honestly, when you're rolling up to this house, do you not see the big sign that says Peanuts Sanctuary and not think, maybe this place might have some sort of legal standing? Or
this is the equivalent of your law enforcement and you raid a fucking orphanage and take all the children, and your reasoning is because you claim they have been kidnapped. Look at all these kids. They got no parents. Where are your parents? You must have been kidnapped. I'm taking you in, and I'm going to make a big deal about it, and 3 children are going to die in the process. It's an orphanage. They already don't have parents, man. Like they're supposed to be there so that they can quite possibly maybe get adopted and get parents. Do you know what I'm saying? You fucking buffoon? Oh my god. This is so dumb. I don't understand.
maybe they're just not educated in the legal standings. Perhaps we should kinda take our foot off the gas here, slow down, and maybe not piss off millions of people with the actions we're about to do.
And where's PETA? Where's PETA? Where the fuck are you motherfuckers? Huh? Let me guess. You're still on some random poor man's fucking farm bitching at him about how he makes bacon. Let me guess. That's where you are. Where are you now? Bothering farmers, probably. Protesting on their fucking land, trespassing. That's where you are, PETA, probably. I don't know. I don't know what the hell y'all are doing.
It's too late now.
But something tells me that the DEC already had made up its mind on what to do with little Peanut and Fred the raccoon. What do you say we give a listen to the local news and a statement from the DEC themselves?
The Chemung County Department of Health and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation are coordinating to ensure the protection of public health related to the illegal possession of wild animals that have the potential to carry the rabies virus.
You see a specific line from that DEC.
To ensure the protection of public health related to the illegal possession of wild animals. Bruh. Like, the sanctuary for animals. And they go there to be rehabilitated. That is already ensuring the protection of public health. Oh, but let me guess. Because it's not y'all that are actually doing it, then it's a problem. Can't have this guy out here doing amazing things. No. We need people to look at us like we're the hero. We need people to look at us like we're Superman. Right? Not this guy. Get him out of the picture. He's making us look bad. Right? We're the conservationists. Not him. Right? Jesus Christ. It almost seems like this is like ego driven. Some way, somehow. By somebody.
animals that have the potential to carry the rabies virus.
You see, a specific line from that DEC quote has me thinking that poor Peanut and Fred were gonna be done the second that they picked up those animals and seized them. That there was never any sort of chance for them to be alive after they had been seized. And it's this line right here.
The potential to carry the rabies virus.
Now, if this investigation is for rabies, this whole entire investigation on the raccoon and the squirrel is rabies based. There is only one way to determine if an animal is infected with rabies.
Bring on the guillotine.
Testing a piece of their brain.
Yes.
And I don't know if you know this about animals, they need 100% of their brains to live.
Yeah.
So if this is a rabies investigation, which will lead to the testing of rabies, that means that this entire investigation was always going to lead to the death of Peanut the squirrel and Freddy the raccoon. So now that we've talked about the paragraph, let's talk about hindsight. Shall we?
It's almost like CTE. I believe what they said was it's too invasive of a procedure to do while the person is living. You went into this situation not knowing if the animals were rabid. And there's 7 years worth of evidence to show that the animals were not rabid. So, y'all are just jackasses, really.
Where you at, Captain Hindsight?
Captain Hindsight.
Investigator Crane. Josh. Why was this necessary? What kind of investigation did you and your team do? Honestly, this is a real question. I'm not trying to be some...
No, really, no. I am gonna be an asshole. What the fuck are y'all doing? Like, I hate to sound like that one guy and sound so fucking cliche, but like, god damn it, there are other crimes happening. There really are, by worse people. Aren't we currently being invaded by a Venezuelan gang at the moment? Where the fuck is y'all's heads at? A squirrel? My god, this is worse than the officer that fucking unloaded half a magazine into his own squad car because a fucking acorn hit the ceiling, or hit the roof of the car.
Who gives a f if a guy has a squirrel and has it for 7 years?
That's it, yeah.
Obviously, if there is some sort of rabies issue, the squirrel would be dead already, or the whole...
A squirrel's not going to survive 7 years with rabies. I don't think. I'm not too knowledgeable on that, but an animal of that size with that kind of inner workings and immune system, that shit ain't gonna last 7 years if it's rabid, man. And I don't know the shelf life for an animal that has rabies, but I'm gonna step out on a limb and say that it's not 7 years.
House would be infected with rabies, but 7 years of domestication would be a red flag that this squirrel is probably fine. And by the way, you can take a squirrel or a raccoon or any other animal that could be potentially infected with rabies.
Dude, and like, as somebody else that's not this Mark fella, how does that make you feel? That like you can order a pizza and the pizza guy comes to your door and your door's open, but there's like that glass door right there, like some houses have. You got the actual wood door, and then you got like a glass door right there, and the wood door's open, but the glass door is right there, and the pizza man rolls up, and your kind of already irritated German Shepherd goes to the door and starts barking and showing his teeth at the pizza man. And the pizza man calls the fucking conservation for animals and says, hey, this man has a rabid German Shepherd. I feared for my fucking life. And then these motherfuckers roll in and kill your dog. How would you feel? Your dog's not rabid, but on some bullshit with some bullshit paperwork and a bullshit opinion and some bullshit testimony and a bullshit story with a bullshit investigation, your dog dies that day. How does that make you feel? It doesn't make me feel very good.
And you can put them in a tank and you can watch them for a week and go, oh, they're not showing any of the signs of rabies. We believe that they are okay. And then release them back to the frickin' owners. Or in this case, Mark, who would be the owner of the squirrel, not the owner of the raccoon, but the head of the animal sanctuary, the rehabilitation place for animals. Inspector Crane, where is the due diligence here?
Yeah, I don't know. This is like, they're not the same person, and I'm not even in the slightest making any kind of correlation between the two people, because one is very clearly a fucking legend. But imagine if you did this shit to Steve Irwin. This is like the same fucking thing. You go in there and like you just fucking rain hell on a fucking crocodile that like he has in captivity because he's the crocodile hunter, because he literally used all the money he made in his career on TV to purchase land upon land upon land so that these animals can survive in peace. And he was just a fantastic entertainer. It'd be like doing this to him. Would you ever in your right mind do that to Steve Irwin? Why would you do it to this guy? It's almost like, you know, this guy didn't go to the government and get on one knee and kiss the fucking ring and like suck someone's dick for the ability to do what he feels is the right thing, and that's by rehabilitating animals, even if they're wild animals. Because even though they could be a danger to you, this guy still believes that they deserve to live and have a life, right? So like, Jesus Christ, man. What the fuck is your problem?
Did you not look at the social media account and be like, oh, millions of followers? This could be a PR nightmare. We might want to tread carefully. By the way, we're going to an animal rescue sanctuary. Maybe this person is just ill-informed. By the way, for those of you in law enforcement, yes, we enforce the law, but we also assist people in understanding it a little bit better. From the DEC standpoint, maybe murking a squirrel and a raccoon isn't necessary. And we could just go up to Mark and say, hey, you're doing this wrong. There are some negative consequences potentially down the line.
You would think, you know, our government being so money hungry the way they are, you would think that they wouldn't have just gone the greedy route. That's the route they always go. Why not approach Mark and be like, listen, you can't really do this, but we see that you have a sanctuary going on here and you're doing some good and you're actually helping. So we'll let you keep the squirrel and the raccoon, but we are going to fine you monthly for you to have these animals. He gets to keep the animals. The government, the greedy ass government, makes their money like they always do because they have to get paid no matter what, right? Everyone wins. No, let's kill the squirrel. Oh my god. It's the world's most dangerous squirrel. Okay. All right.
How about you fill out some paperwork to get this animal registered in some sort of way or form or fashion so that you're covered and you're doing it legally by the law. Dot your I's, cross your T's. Let's work together as members of this community. But that didn't happen, did it? I know that raccoons have rabies, all right? But even then, the raccoon was only with Mark for a couple months rehabilitating. You didn't even give him enough time to make the mistake of trying to keep the raccoon as a pet, but the squirrel.
And on top of that, I'm sure that he probably kept the raccoon in an enclosed space. He was probably very careful with this raccoon. I don't know, man. Something about this guy tells me that he's not a dummy. I don't feel like he's negligent. I don't feel like he's irresponsible. I just feel like he's doing a good thing, and y'all just can't stand to see a motherfucker shine, man. Really, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. Really, like, what else? Hey, give us the reason then, because that's what I'm going with. Y'all just hate to see a motherfucker succeed. Y'all hate to see a motherfucker doing his own thing. Y'all hate to see a motherfucker making so much money that he doesn't need the government, because that's what the government wants all the time. They want you to need them always. And whenever they see a motherfucker doing it for himself, they hate it.
Why can't we keep squirrels as pets? Holy... I'm not saying that everybody should just go up and grab a wild animal and now it's your freaking kid's plaything. But what's the next step in this, huh? We gonna start fining people that feed the squirrels at Central Park and just go in there with night vision goggles and...
Bravo 6. Going dog.
What about the people with bird feeders? And their yard is always pretty much littered with birds and hummingbirds and cardinals and blue jays and orioles, and I mean probably not all of those animals in one place at one time. That would be like kind of crazy. Because I can count on maybe two hands how many times I've actually seen those birds before. Specifically, they're rare to me. Maybe some of y'all see them all the time, but you know what I'm talking about? And you go to this one house that has this bird feeder that all the birds are at, and you're like, she's harboring birds. She's trafficking birds. She's luring them in. She's taking them and she's selling them on the black market for silver. She must be stopped. What?
Start murking squirrels. You doing some night ops outside of every bakery and freaking restaurant in New York City, waiting for the squirrels to go trash panda-ing and then murking them. Inspector Crane, quick! Raccoons are coming out of the trash bin! We're being surrounded! Now, Mark said that he was getting an educational animal certificate for Peanut. Now, I don't know how far along in the process Mark was, or if he was just saying that because...
Dog, I've seen normal, regular, everyday people have a squirrel. I never knew that having a squirrel could be illegal. It never dawned on me that it could be illegal. And mainly because it never dawned on me that people would own a squirrel, because in my eyes, I was just like, how do y'all get a squirrel? I see squirrels in my backyard all the time, but the only way I could even get close to this thing is if I wounded it. I'm not fast enough to track down a fucking squirrel. So in my head, I always thought no one has squirrels. Until I saw people with squirrels, and I was like, oh, that's cool. You actually can catch them. And they were like, oh, no, I didn't catch him. And with squirrels, it's usually more along lines of like the same story. I found him. He was injured, away, baby, stuff like that. Or some stories, he just came to my front porch. I gave him some food, and he came back every day until he decided to come in and never left. I've heard those stories as well with squirrels, right? So it never really dawned on me that it could be illegal, because I've never been fucked up by a squirrel. I've never had a bad experience with a squirrel at all, ever. So you would think we were talking about like pit bulls or something. You would think we were talking about like dangerous rabid dogs that were just out here on a fucking biting spree. No, we're talking about a squirrel that makes TikTok videos.
He knew that was an option, but didn't get it started yet. But let's just say that he was just getting it started. He just understood it. And then that next day, you come in and take out his squirrel. DEC, you took out the class pet. You literally took out the class pet. What's next, huh? We gonna just start executing Big Bird on Sesame Street because he might have the bird flu?
Snuffleupagus? Is that you?
And one of the statements that the DEC put out was that one of the officers, while grabbing at and finding and seizing Peanut the squirrel, was bit by Peanut. And they had to get him tested for rabies because, hey, you don't want to get rabies. And that's why they had to put him down. Well, one of the reasons. Which leads me to ask a question.
So why wouldn't you have protective gloves on and protective equipment to allow an animal like him that to bite you?
Because, like Angry Cop said, they had, and I believe this too, they had zero intention on going in there and retrieving your animals alive.
I would assume you'd be wearing thick gloves in case the squirrel, I don't know, tried to bite you, or
it's like a cop. It's like a cop rolls up to someone, right? Starts asking them questions, and then removes his gun and just like sets it right there on the table within reach of the person he's talking to, right? And then the person that he's talking to looks at the gun and like reaches his hand for the gun, and then the cop real fast grabs the gun and shoots the person 5 times. And then he's like, he reached for my gun. Yeah, jackass, after you done put it on the table and enticed him to grab it. That's entrapment. That's illegal. You're going to jail for murder, man. Like, what are you doing?
Hear me out, right? Maybe if we didn't kick in the door and act like an to the owner, we could ask the owner, once again, who's got hundreds of videos of the squirrel just doing exactly what he tells him to do because the squirrel's domesticated, to find the squirrel, get him, put him into a cage so that there is no incident. Oh, I wonder if that happened. I wonder if they asked Mark, could you find your fucking squirrel and put him in a crate for us so we don't have to do something stupid?
Why use government taxpayer money to do this when you could have just easily written a $1,000 to $1,500 check to the local animal control, and the local animal control could have went in and properly seized the animals alive. You take them in, you do your testing, whatever the fuck you need to do, and then you promptly return the animals. Or you can tell Mark where to come and pick up his animals. Yeah, I really believe y'all had every intention on just killing this animal on sight.
But did anybody ask that? No? But it doesn't matter because, like I said, the mission from the start was to test the animals for rabies, which means lopping off their head, scooping out a chunk of brain, and putting it underneath the microscope. And of course, the story caught on like freaking wildfire. Everybody's saying justice for Peanut, and Peanut's the reason why Trump's gonna get elected. There are tons of people in the comments who gives a shit about a squirrel. Why is everybody so upset about a squirrel? Because if the government's gonna be so potentially stupid and reckless to not do any back investigation on a 1 million follower animal
who's to say that they won't do it to you with your dog or your cat or whatever animal you have that brings you joy in your life?
Presence is funding an animal rescue that has been interviewed nationally and internationally. If they don't do their due diligence on that and automatically go to your house to kill your pet that you've owned for 7 years, do you think they give a shit about you? Now, one of my state representatives put out a fantastic tweet saying, what the f going on? I need some answers. Hope you get them. And I hope that there's some sort of accountability because this entire thing is so stupid in regards to the DEC and the way this warrant was executed, that there should be some freaking backlash. There should be people looking into this and going, what were you thinking?
There should be some all-around firings happening, but that's not the way the government works when you fuck up there. The person that should be held accountable the absolute most is the judge. That's the person that essentially allowed this to happen. And how is it that judges can get away with doing this shit? Sometimes even maybe an oversight. Sometimes maybe the wrong address. Sometimes maybe the wrong apartment building. And you raid the wrong fucking person. Judges are never held responsible for that shit, ever. And neither are the responding officers. Ever, bro. Ever. It's always chalked up to, oh, my bad. Here's a phone number of someone you can call and they'll reimburse you for all the shit we fucked up on accident. All right.
I hope every judge just goes, a squirrel?
No. Yeah, the goddamn judge needs to answer questions. Really. Fuck were you thinking, dog?
You're doing a warrant for a squirrel. If you do some stupid peanut again, I'll fucking have the attorney generals go after you. Do you want me to sign it? You know, I'm not gonna sign it. You're gonna do some more homework, then you're gonna come back to me on why this is such a big deal that I, a judge in New York State, need to sign a warrant for a squirrel. You're gonna go back, you're gonna...
Then again, bro, it's New York. At the end of the day, can we really be surprised? It's New York. It's the East Coast version of California, guys.
Do more work. I don't care what work it is. You're going to do more of it. And then you're going to come back and show me all that work. And then I'll think about signing it.
Get out. Get out.
And as if that isn't enough, allow me
I love Judge Judy, by the way. She's the only one out of these court TV shows that I've seen a couple times, watched, and enjoy watching. All the other ones, I feel like they're just knockoffs. Judge Judy, I feel like she did it first. She does it the best.
To give you 2 additional DEC stories. One of them's gonna go to Pepperbox, so if you want to listen to that story, you gotta go to Pepperbox and check us out. I'll put a link down there below. Uncensored and additional content. Anywho, 1, there's an older gentleman down in Western New York by the Pennsylvania border, and he owns a pawn shop, an antique shop, if you will. He's got a whole bunch of old trinkets, old things. He's got a fake lion skin draped over an old chair. Well, he ends up passing away, and his son takes over the shop. And the week that his son takes over the antique shop, boom, it gets raided by the DEC. You know why? Because that lion skin that's been draped over the chair for 50 years, I'm not exaggerating, 50 years, turns out to be real. And because Dad died and didn't dispose of it or some sort of way, and it transferred over to his son, he now has basically the same thing as ivory tusks that you're not allowed to have. He gets arrested, put into jail, fined, can't have a pistol permit, has to try and fight to get his pistol permit back, all because his dad at an antique shop had a lion's freaking skin there that the DEC already knew about, but once Dad died and transferred all the in the store to his son, the DEC swoops in, arrests the guy, and him.
I must say, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I can't even be mad. You, DEC, have somehow made the ATF look not so fucking stupid. That, ladies and gentlemen, is impressive. I didn't think it could be done. I thought it was impossible. Move over, ATF. You have competition. I'm excited to see the climax of this little foot race. Who's going to take first place? Who's going to stay in second? Who's going to rise to the occasion? Right? It's going to be a good one, Cotton. You can probably find a random fucking 9-year-old Call of Duty nerd that can tell you more about guns than any of these motherfuckers that work at the ATF.
Breaking news! The DEC union put out a letter 2 days ago stating, hey, we're a little upset with this whole squirrel thing. Everybody needs to settle down a little bit. So let's read portions of this letter together and see if it changes our minds or brings light to something new that we didn't know about before. That's what I like about you guys. Keeping an open mind. The first 2 paragraphs kind of gloss over.
No, not really, man. My mind's made up. I don't really matter what they say. What can they say? Aside from the standard bullshit that they always do. This was a matter of national security.
For the hate that the DEC's been getting. Bomb threats are not something that you should be doing when you're upset about a squirrel, right? The squirrel being euthanized.
Yes, bomb threats are definitely not something that you should do in regards to news about a squirrel. However, I'm not sad about it. I'm not going to lose sleep about it. And for some reason, I can't stop smiling. I don't know what it is. Strange. Oh well. What can you do?
Is an overstep. Making a bomb threat is a massive overstep and overcorrection, overreaction.
It is an overreaction. But
have been getting threats, and now as much as everybody wants to hold everybody and the appropriate people accountable for things, let's keep this in mind. The head of the DEC may not be aware of every single warrant that's going out throughout New York State, just as the head of the New York State Troopers.
Well, I bet that person knows now. All I'm saying. Nothing like a good old bomb threat to get the ball rolling.
To be aware of every single warrant going out throughout the state of New York. Now, should the chain of command be held responsible for those below them? Yes. Now, how does being responsible look? Well, time will tell. But now that we learned about some of the overreaction and the things we shouldn't do, nothing wrong with texting your congressmen or representatives, though, to tell them how mad you are. Absolutely do that. Let's get into the investigation parts that, I don't think the public has been aware of yet. While the investigation is ongoing and certain facts cannot yet be disclosed, we can provide the following information. The investigation was initiated in January of this year when several New York State licensed wildlife rehabilitators filed complaints with the agency that Mark Longo was operating an illegal wildlife sanctuary.
No, you fucking snitches. What the fuck is this? Bush League? Oh my god, you saw him as competition and look what you do. You fucking... That's the way I see it. You fucking spineless bitches. You see someone else on the come up, huh? Can't have this, can't have that, even though everyone starts somewhere. That's how I see it. And fuck, man, it's helping animals. Who cares if it's legal? I'm gonna go ahead and say that right now. You're helping animals. Who cares? If you're on a mission to save children that are being sex trafficked, yo, you can break a couple laws, man. It's okay. I'm not gonna say anything. By all means. I don't think none of us are gonna say anything. If it's in the name of good. You fucking...
Following up on these complaints, an environmental conservation officer contacted Mr. Longo, informing him that keeping a squirrel is illegal unless he was a licensed wildlife rehabilitator, with the intent of preparing the animal to re-enter nature. Mr. Longo told investigators that the squirrel had been released to the wild. Okay, so although it's a wildlife sanctuary, it's not a real rehabilitation sanctuary.
What constitutes as real, man? Is it paperwork? Is it some stupid fucking signatures? Because I look at it from a results kind of standpoint. You know what I'm saying?
At least licensed by New York, and other licensed rehabilitation centers for animals were upset. I mean, understandably so. If it costs money and time for you to do the right thing, I would be upset if somebody just started doing some when it took me a whole bunch of a long legal process in order to get it done. Hey, why is that guy getting special treatment? I had to do all this. Why doesn't he? At the same time,
I think that pride and ego can go out the window when it's in pursuit of a good cause, like saving animals or children or shit like that. Does it really matter how he got there? We're saving animals here, man. This isn't sports where a motherfucker's taking steroids and the guys that aren't taking steroids are like, oh, that's not fair, man. I'm not taking steroids. So naturally that fucker gets kicked out of the league. I don't feel like that's the case here, bro. Who gives a fuck about his journey? He's there, right? And he's doing the same shit y'all are. At least from my perspective. Yeah, maybe he's missing a couple permits and shit like that, but help him. I don't know, man. Help him. You're in the business, right? You did all these things, right? How about you help a fellow person that's in the same business as you so that he can succeed? And if he succeeds, that's one more person helping other animals. I feel like it's a win-win, but...
to get a rehabilitation place for animals started. This is part of the bureaucracy that people don't like. I want to save some freaking animals. Well, you got to pay this fine, you got to do this thing. And
why the fuck does a motherfucker have to jump through hoops to do a good deed? That's why these days no one wants to do the right thing anymore. That's why these days no one wants to volunteer. That's why these days no one wants to help. Because look at this shit. Look what you have to do. Like, man, it reminds me of, when I was in the service, I really wanted a motorcycle. Like, really, really bad. I really wanted a motorcycle. I know, hindsight, terrible idea. Right? It's like, whatever. And with epilepsy, no less, right? But I really wanted a motorcycle. And eventually, my brain kicked in, and I was like, that's not a good idea. Let's not do it. However, when I started to go through the process of wanting to get a motorcycle, it was very clear to me that the military did not want us having motorcycles. Do you want to know why? Because the military invests in you as a soldier, right? Via paying you via life insurance, via just a whole bunch of shit, right? A whole bunch of benefits. They invest in you. If you hop on a motorcycle, you're putting their investment at risk. So what does the military do? The military sets up so many things, and they put so much shit in your way that it's almost to the point where you don't even want the motorcycle anymore. And that's exactly what happened to me. There were so many obstacles that the military put in my way before I could even begin the process of going out and buying a motorcycle, and it was a whole thing. And it was so much so that I was like, you know what? I don't even want the bike. If I get a bike, I'll just get one when I get out of the service, because I guarantee it is probably leaps and bounds easier getting a motorcycle license and all this stuff and going through all the processes in the civilian world than it is in the military. This shit isn't even worth it, man. By the time I even get through all this shit, oh my god. Anyways,
this paperwork, I just thought I needed a barn and food and people willing to help me. No, sir. No. It's not that easy. Of course it isn't that easy. Thanks a lot, New York. I'm still upset. After the warning was issued, complaints continued to be received by DEC. And DEC management ordered an investigation. A DEC investigator conducted a review of Mr. Longo's social media accounts, which showed that Longo had lied to the investigator and had not released the squirrel into the wild. In addition to keep the squirrel in violation of the law, Longo had also taken in a raccoon, which appeared in social media postings as well. Mr. Longo's social media posts were the basis for the search warrant issued by a judge. All right. Who gives a about the squirrel? 7 years. I stand by this. 7 years. This animal can't take care of itself, and you're supposed to release it in the wild? You already tried that, allegedly. And come on, Mark. Brother, you think that they're not looking at your social media posts? You think that they're not looking?
Bro, I've seen videos, and I know y'all have too, because I actually pulled up this man's channel a couple weeks ago on stream. This man has wolves, man. Wolves. He has a female. He has 2 females. Don't think he has he has 1 female and 1 male. Wolves. The male is huge, bro. Huge. He plays with these wolves. He owns these wolves. The wolves were born, he was there. He's had these wolves since they were tiny. These wolves probably would kill for this man, probably, if threatened in that way. I can only imagine DEC or some kind of law enforcement rolling up to this guy. If y'all don't pull up already shooting, those wolves will kill every single person there. Really. He owns 2 wolves, bro. And he talks to them, he fucking plays with them, all this shit, man. I've seen his videos. And how it is. And the wolves respect him. They all this shit. They have like a really good relationship. And so, am I upset that this man has wolves? No. Why would I care? Why would it matter? I believe that when it comes to animals, this should be a reactive thing, not a proactive thing. You let people have their animals, bro, and if the animals end up becoming a problem for either that person or for public safety, then you take action. Don't be so proactive like this, man. Like, I can understand the mindset for a person like Michael Vick, but man, don't be that proactive and heavy-handed for something this tiny and small and innocuous, man. Something like a squirrel, like a squirrel. What the fuck, dude?
You know, you saying, if this guy posts another freaking squirrel video with that squirrel he said he got rid of, well, we just can't sit here and do nothing. Media reports portrayed the seizure as being carried out by 10 to 12 agents of the state, making it sound as if it were a tactical raid. In truth, there were 3 uniformed environmental correction officers who were responsible for securing an 80-acre compound, several plainclothes investigators who carried out the search pursuant to the warrant, and 3 DEC wildlife employees who were not police officers. Now, every time a civilian person says, I was raided and there was 30 cops there, it's not like there was 30 SWAT members. Yeah, I get it. There was a bunch of people there, and it's still overwhelming for a person who's just, you know, helping rescue some...
SWAT is SWAT, bro. SWAT's gonna be like a group of maybe 12. Maybe even less than that. I think SWAT would be 12. They roll up in a truck. You got your team, which probably be comprised of... The breach team probably be comprised of 6. You got the people in the truck, driver, TC. Between like 8, 9 for SWAT, give or take a couple. And then your regular beat cops, maybe about like, I don't know, 5, 6 of those, just to secure perimeters and shit. I don't know what those DEC people are doing there. But there's always going to be a lot of people there, but they're not all police.
Horses and squirrels.
Actual police. You know.
Can we not agree on that? After locating the squirrel, it bit one of the DEC civilian wildlife biologists through 2 pairs of protective gloves. Damn! Homie's got some sharp teeth. Due to the injury, the Chemung County Department of Health was contacted and the squirrel and raccoon were turned over alive. The Chemung County Department of Health made the determination to humanely euthanize both, as it is the only way to test for rabies, as rabies testing requires taking a sample of brain matter. But we already know that the warrant was for testing.
So, and on top of this, one of your officers was bit. So can you not then, I don't know how this works, but can you not then just test the officer? And if the officer doesn't have rabies, then neither does the fucking squirrel? And you could save the euthanization? I don't know, man. That just seems logical to me, right?
So those squirrel and the raccoon were already dead, man. They were already dead. While squirrels do not typically carry rabies, the cohabitation with the raccoon, a species known to be a vector for rabies, opened the possibility of animal-to-animal transmission, which placed the wildlife biologist in potential danger. This was unfortunate, but the decision was not made by the environment.
You placed yourself in danger by putting yourself in that situation. I just want to repeat that one more time. You put yourself in potential danger by willingly and purposefully putting yourself in that situation. I just want you to know that a little bit.
Environmental conservation officers, investigators, or DEC wildlife biologists participating in the service of this warrant. 2 things can be true at the same time, all right? A guy trying to start a rehabilitation for animals center might be doing it the wrong way. Hey, heart's in the right place, okay? But that gosh dang paperwork just isn't filled out yet. Perhaps an education would be better. Now, if we started this back in January, I'm looking at Mark with a little bit of, come on, bud. Come on, we gotta solve the situation. Because the other side of that same coin, right, is that, Mark, you need to be a little bit more responsible with what's going on here, all right? Fill out the correct paperwork.
In all fairness, though, he probably didn't think that not filling out the paperwork would result in the death of his squirrel and his raccoon. You know? Think about it in terms of like a debt collector. Well, if you don't pay it, you don't pay it, and you're not really scared of not fucking paying it, because what are they gonna do? Come and break your kneecaps? No. So that's probably how he felt. He's like, I'll get it when I fucking get it, man. They can tough titties. I'm sure had he known this would be the consequences, which is unfathomable, then I'm sure, you know, hindsight, right? But
make sure the squirrel is on the correct path, or at least you've begun it, for the squirrel to be an educational animal, okay? Now, I'm not saying that Mark's inability to do paperwork on time should be the reason why a raid was done for a squirrel.
Exactly, dude.
But,
Jesus.
Mark, since January, it's 9 months ago, man.
I know, but you have to understand that it's fucking paperwork, dude. It's paperwork, and the way I look at paperwork is you get it when you get it. What the fuck are you gonna do about it? That's how I look at paperwork. You get it when you get it. That's it, man. Like, I don't have time. And if I forgot, I fucking forgot. But the punishment for not doing paperwork should not be the death of your animal.
I still don't like it. I still think it's freaking stupid. Common sense, to me, says we should make it a fairly easy process to become an animal sanctuary. Yeah, sure, have the DEC go in there and check up on things every year, every couple months. Whatever you want to make sure it's not some, slaughterhouse that's being used to kill pandas.
Panda watch.
I still see the legitimate representation of Peanut the Squirrel's demise being a horrible yet perfect example of government overreach, or government preventing people from doing the things they want because of the red tape and paperwork and bureaucracy and
this just in, breaking news.
The government will straight up rob a fucking 8-year-old's lemonade stand if she makes a little too much money. Oh yeah, and they will come in and destroy this little 8-year-old girl's lemonade stand. That's what the government does. They will get paid. That all they see is green. Nope, you don't have a business license. You don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have that. Sorry, tough fucking shit, young lady. You made too much money and we want it.
Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch just made an article saying that Peanut the Squirrel is a classic sign of government overreach. Congratulations, Mark. You, your wife, Peanut are gonna get justice. You can sue the living balls out of everybody that
sue them for everything, man. I would sue them for everything. On top of that, an additional demand of every single person that had a hand in the death of that squirrel to be fired. Sue them so fucking hard it affects their future unborn children. That's what I would do. Into fucking oblivion for as much as you can. Be as greedy as you need to be. Blow it out your ass, DEC. Making ATF look not as retarded. Again, impressive. Genuinely inspiring to watch. Makes me feel like a genius. Makes me feel superior. Makes me feel like God level, really, when in reality, I'm not that at all. I'm just a normal fucking person with a normal average level IQ and critical thinking skills. It's just that y'all are that fucking stupid. Oh, I'm so tired of this shit. Dana White destroys Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. Andrew Tate destroys fucking Jake Paul for fighting Mike Tyson. Yeah, but y'all still watch, right? Exactly. And this fight's been in talks to happen for months now, right? Did y'all say anything? No. And now y'all want to say something? Oh, that was a disgusting display. I agree. Y'all watched it though, right? Shut the fuck up. Lead up to the fight, you give your opinions and your thoughts like, it might be interesting. And then the fight happens and you're just like, pearl clutching. I'm appalled. Shut the fuck up. So many disingenuous motherfuckers right now about that whole Tyson and Jake Paul shit. Jesus Christ.